you want to know what gets my goat is opening up custom cabinets and seeing particle board everywhere. There's a much better use for sawdust, and that's Parmesan cheese. If you think I'm joking, look at the ingredients. The funny thing is, if you do enough woodworking, you kind of develop a taste for the stuff. Anyways, on this episode, we're going to build some actual custom cabinets. These are made of walnut on the outside, and on the inside, we use plywood. That is thinly layered actual wood and not sawdust that's going to swell up if it gets any moisture on it. One thing to note about this episode is that this is a first of a small series, so be sure and subscribe so you can keep an eye out for the other videos and watch the whole entire cabinet build. Let's get going. Today we're going to start with the cabinet faces. I purchased this number 2 walnut at a local hardwood supplier. The first thing we'll do is we'll cut some 1x2 strips. For the rest of this video, you'll hear me talking about these as 1x2s, even though the actual dimensions are 1.5 inches by 1 inch. Also, you can use normal pine when you build these. I have before and I'm sure I will again. Let's cut these 1x2s down to usable lengths. You'll need 2 that are 32 inches. Then you'll need 3 that are 27 inches. Now cut one that's 6 inches long and one that's 21.5 inches long. Now put 2 pocket holes in each side of all but the 32-inch pieces. Those 2 won't need the pocket holes. We're going to start by attaching those 27-inch pieces to the sides of those 32-inch boards. The first one will attach flush with the top. The second one will be 6 inches down from that one. Then the last one will attach flush with the bottom. Now attach that 6-inch board and the 21.5-inch board in the middle of those 2 spaces. For these walnut boards, I did have to pre-drill these so the wood wouldn't split. Wood wouldn't. Now's a really good time to sand this with an 80 grit sandpaper and then go back and sand it with the 120. When I'm building cabinets, I always try to start with the faces. It makes the rest of the measurements a lot easier. Let's take our 1/2 inch plywood and cut 2 pieces that are 23 inches wide and 35 inches long. For all your plywood, I recommend sanding it as soon as you get done cutting it out. I use 80 and then 120 grit. Next, we'll cut a rectangle out of the bottom front of both of these. These need to be 4¼ inches wide and 3½ inches tall. Let's cut one more 1/2 inch piece of plywood. Let's cut it 23 inches deep and 29 inches wide. On the bottom of this board, I'm going to put 4 or 5 pocket holes. This will be to hold the face of the cabinet on later. As you can see, I did use a piece of scrap plywood here, but once it's flipped over, no one will ever see the bottom. Let's cut our 1x4 up. We want one that's 30 inches, one that's 29 inches, and 3 that are 18 inches. Start with the 18-inch pieces. Attach 2 of these to the bottom inside edge of the 2 cabinet sides. The 30-inch board will be attached to the front of these. You'll want the ends of this board to be flush with the outsides of the cabinet. This 29-inch piece will go just inside these cabinet sides. Attach that last 18-inch 1x4 right in the center. Use wood glue and a small nail gun to attach that 23 by 29-inch piece of plywood. Make sure those pocket holes are pointed down and forward. Take some 1/4 inch plywood and cut a piece that's 33 inches long and 30 inches wide. I'll attach that piece to the back of the cabinet. Make sure it's flush with the top. Nobody's ever going to see the bottom, so don't worry about that too much. Here I'm taking some 1x3s and I'm cutting them to 6 inches long at 45-degree angles. These I'm going to use for bracing on the top of the cabinet. We're also going to install butcher blocks on our cabinet, so these will help mount that. You'll want to attach those in all 4 corners. For the front, you'll only be able to attach one side for now. Just make sure it's flush with the edge of the plywood. Now I'll cut a 1x12, 29 inches long. I attached it 12 inches up from that bottom piece of plywood. Let's take a 1x2 and cut it down to 30 inches. Now let's split that guy right in half. These will need to be attached on the inside of the cabinets. You'll want them flush with the front of both sides. Let's pre-drill 5 small holes in both of these. We're going to use these to attach the face in a little bit. Now throw 1 or 2 pocket holes in each one of these 2 braces. Let's cut up a couple 1x4s. We need 4 that are 23 inches long. On 2 of those, we'll put 2 pocket holes on one end. On the other 2, we're going to notch out one of the ends. First, I'll set my table saw blade 3/4 of an inch from the fence, and then I'll raise the blade to 1/2 inch high. I'll send these through laying down flat first. Now I set my blade 1/2 inch from the fence and raised it to 3/4 of an inch high. Then I'll run those 2 pieces through on their sides. Now it's time to stain everything that's not really walnut. Don't forget to stain these little guys. Let's attach the face of our cabinet using wood glue and some screws through those small holes we made earlier. I used a ratchet to screw in the ones from the bottom. Let's attach these 1x4s flush with the edge of these drawer openings. These first 2 I'm attaching with those pocket holes. Here I'm making sure that the back is even with the front on all these. I'm also attaching these other 1x4s to the sides here. That notch is facing forward. I did put 1 screw in the top of the front there just for a little extra strength. Time for some polyurethane. Once that dries, it's time to throw on these awesome cabinet doors. Be sure and subscribe so you can check out that episode, and I'll show you how to build these. They're really simple, it just takes a little bit longer to explain how to do it. Let's throw in the cabinet drawer slides. Big thing on these is making sure they're level with the cabinet. Now I'll install the drawers. I am creating a separate episode for these as well. To attach these drawer faces, I drilled a couple holes in the front of the drawer boxes. Then I attached the face with wood glue and a couple screws. You really want to make sure these are even and they match your cabinet doors.